On April 23rd, 2007, my YouTube channel was created. 11 years have passed since then, and it's hard to believe that so much time has already gone by. Everything from the cheesy homemade layout, derpy editing style, and even dashing good looks, of course, have completely changed. So to celebrate the occasion, I've decided to actually make this here video for everyone to enjoy. Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this lovely episode of the Slovak Mountain Man. I am the Slovak Mountain Man, and on today's episode, we shall be taking a room tour here. I have been planning this for probably like the past 10 years basically, ever since I came into this house. Each, little item or, poster on the wall or game I have on my shelf, everything has a little memory attached to it. Either way, I hope you enjoy this, so let's get right to it, shall we? Let's just begin, with behind me over here. What you see behind me, once you walk into the door, you're greeted, to my closet. I actually made this, when Splatoon first came out. This is like my Splatoon hat over here. I really like this a lot. I was surprised just how well, this turned out. And then if you look above here, this is actually one of my favorite costumes I ever got as a toddler. I actually wore this on Halloween, and I had to grab the tail and walk around it so it wouldn't drag from, the ground. Now if I put it on, the tail barely reaches, the ground, and I can only fit my hands inside of it. Then above it is my, Samus helmet from Metroid. I made this out of paper, Papakura over here, if you know what that is. I used that program to find a 3D model of, Samus's helmet, and then I put it together out of this cardboard paper, and then I painted it, and it, turned out into Samus's helmet here, which, it's pretty awesome. Squibbles is right there in the corner if you see him, but basically these bat wings are the ones that he used when, Dracula first came, to the stream when we were playing Castlevania Symphony of the Night. And then speaking of Squibbles, here's Squibbles, the stream mascot. Basically, people ask me, where do I buy a Squibbles? Well, you can't buy a Squibbles because Squibbles is, homemade over here. It was my first, creation, out of crochet. It was very ambitious. It took me 1 month to do, but it paid off. And so yeah, I created this little, crochet kitty. Also, fun fact, in case people didn't know, hiding over here between Uka Uka and Aku Aku is Squibble's long-lost sister. This is Clara. She has no feet, but I created Clara at the same time as I created Squibbles. She is always watching, so I don't, if you go back to my, previous videos and streams, you will always see Clara is in the background watching, giving you the dead stare. And then if you turn around, here are actually some of my creations on display. First, you have the Aku Aku mask from Crash Bandicoot. I made this anticipating, the Insane Trilogy when it was coming out. It's life-size, you can put it on your head, and it looks awesome. Pap actually wore this, if you saw it during the Crash Bandicoot 1 review. If you look next to Aku Aku over here, you actually have Uka Uka over here. Both of them are awesome, and you can actually wear them on your face, and you'll be able to see through them because there's holes underneath. But between these two, I don't know which one I like most. It is so cool, and it looks, it looks excellent, as a backdrop to the streams as well as, the videos here. Look how cool that is. Then here, looking down, is a ginormous Perler Bead Metroid over here that one of the Patreons actually, Nigel Johnson, he made for me, and then he sent it. This thing also glows in the dark. It is so awesome, I never expected, to get something like this from a fan, let alone something like this that I don't even have enough room to put, on my walls or anything. Behind the Metroid, I actually have Pyramid Head, from the Silent Hill series. Squibbles usually, I make these little costumes for Squibbles so he can wear them, and then, I show him off on the stream. Basically, this door is used for holding yarn as well as tools, as well as little things that I might need and don't want to lose, easily. And then once you finally go inside, this is basically the area where I keep all my costumes. Everything from Link's outfit, from The Legend of Zelda, to Tingle, to Dracula, as well as, Shenmue over here. But if you move this to the side, you can actually see some feet sticking, out of the ground. This is my stuntman Raul. You can see his first appearance in the Chase Down video. He's actually the one that falls down the stairs, Pap's up there and throws him down the stairs. So basically I put on a long sleeve shirt, long pants, and I duct taped myself, and then I slowly cut it and kind of made a shell of my body from 6 years ago. Basically all 4 years of my high school, all those tests, all that homework, all the junk I don't really need, all those papers, I crumpled up and I actually stuffed it into Raul. And the reason I chose Raul as the name is just, it's a very interesting name to say. It's just Raul. I just like that name for some reason. If you look up though, there's this little shelf, and I have a little bit of more, costumes and stuff in there. I have some wigs up there. I have some hats. I have some weapons. If you've played the South Park Stick of Truth, basically, let's say if you go to Cartman's room and you check his closet, it's basically similar to that, where you can see references to all my videos and streams basically behind here, and it's kind of cool. If you look down, down, I have a box of basically paint and my art supplies. There's some random like beer bottles, empty wine bottles and whatnot. They're empty because, you know, of course my, you know, mom drank them all, of course. Then if you keep going over here, you have like a little shelf. These are basically my brother's games, you know, the ones that they grew up on. That either don't really mean much to me, you know, so I don't, you know, put them on the main shelf, or I just don't have anywhere else to put them, and so they kind of chill here. And then at the bottom of the shelves are just like the loose discs and stuff. And if you turn once to the side over here, you're basically introduced to this, you know, ginormous shelf. This houses not only my TV, but my turtles basically. So let's start over there, you know. This one over here in the bigger tank is called Fifi, and then the one in the tiny tank over here is called Swamp Butt. Fifi I've actually had for like, you know, I think 5 years or something. She's always trying to like eat my finger whenever I put it, you know, close to the glass over here like that. And it's a giant turd, you know. She also hisses at me. And then Swamp Butt here is kind of derpy. My mom actually got her, you know, from the cemetery, and Swamp Butt was just like scurrying about at full speed. And then if you look over here, this is my, you know, old chair. Basically I used to use this hunk of junk, you know, for I'd say like 7 years or something, you know. And then that's when I, you know, bought like this $100, you know, armchair basically. And that thing actually fell apart on me a few months ago. And now I actually have this, you know, new chair here. Somebody threw it out actually, but this is one of the most comfortable chairs I've ever, you know, sat on. If you pull out these shelves over here, it was enough space for me to kind of hold my movies on here. I have everything from, you know, cheesy 80 films to like awesome horror movies, and then, you know, just random like cartoons and whatnot. One of my favorites though, ever since the toddler days, is actually this one right here, Rock-a-Doodle. I don't know if anyone has seen this, but it's kind of like a cheesy musical. Right next to this is a little, you know, tripod. I didn't have, you know, cash back in the toddler days, and I remember actually doing like a billion surveys, and eventually you get like a few cents and whatnot. And I remember doing that, you know, basically spent maybe like the entire summer, you know, completing surveys and stuff. And I actually bought myself a little mini tripod over here, you know. I had the patience and kind of, you know, bamboozling skills over here to actually buy myself, you know, a $5 like little thing from eBay. And then this giant, you know, beast over here, you know, I don't actually know what TV model it is. It says Sharp on here, but this thing is ginormous. It actually, you know, reaches all the way back to the wall, so it's kind of, you know, heavy too. And one of my favorite memories actually include, you know, playing Final Fantasy VI for the first time. I didn't know, you know, what to expect when I started that game, but that entire intro like sequence, right when I, you know, had that controller in my hand, I knew that I was about to begin an adventure, and I was right. And then that's, you know, how, you know, Final Fantasy VI basically became my favorite game on the Super Nintendo, as well as one of my favorite RPGs ever made. In between, you know, the turtle tank and the TV here, I have some controllers set up here that I normally use, you know, such as the PlayStation 3 controller here, and then also the GameCube adapter for the Wii U. But underneath all of that is actually a giant bucket of perler beads over here. If you don't know what perler beads are, they're these little tiny, you know, plastic colored beads that you use, you know, to connect together and create like some kind of like sprite, you know, character. I actually have my guitar over here. Strumming is actually kind of difficult for me. I know how to do it with a uke because I've practiced and stuff, but with this, I don't even know where to start. I kind of customized it myself, you know, with some cartoons that I really like. And then if you keep going back over here above, you know, Fifi's tank, you're actually greeted to the Nemesis costume I made for Squibbles. I created this thing entirely out of paper mache, but I think it turned out pretty awesome. Everything from the teeth to like the battle scars, you know, makes it, you know, well worth, you know, having on the stream. And then right next to, you know, Nemesis over here, you actually have Frankie. This is my, you know, liquid latex like hand that I created, molded, you know, after my own hand. And then just some random like posters, either from like games or like Bon Jovi. You got some Splatoon over here, and then also Sephiroth, you know. Everything from his like long hair to like the dark clothes he wears to that like, you know, giant like sword he uses, you know, to like attack people, kind of inspired me, you know, to kind of like, you know, get into like metal, and he is definitely one of my favorite villains ever made. So if you move down, you actually see my, you know, crocheted Mr. Saturn costume that I made for Squibbles when we played Earthbound. That thing is awesome, and it kind of just sits there, you know, on the wall. And then next to that, you actually see these three, you know, homemade like posters that I created myself. One for the Nintendo 64, one for the Super Nintendo, and then one for the PlayStation 1. Basically, these games are what defined me as a gamer and either have played growing up or that I want to play on each system. And then if you keep moving down, you actually, you know, make it to my console desk. Basically in the back, I have like this little extension cable, which I can easily turn the power on and off for whichever console I want to, you know, to play at that moment. And then I also have them all connected to the AV, you know, divider. And so whichever one I want, I just flip a switch and then I can see the signal either on the TV or, you know, on the stream. Aside from all that, I think it's time, you know, that we switch the camera angle over here. And so you can get a better look at, you you know, my actual workstation, what I would like to call it. This is where I not only stream, but where I also, you know, edit videos. I write some of my videos, and then I also, you know, just kind of explore the internet. Is all, you know, in this little like location right here. It's about, I think, 7 years ago, right here on this spot, where I was talking to a pal and we were trying to figure out how exactly I would share my screen, you know, the Silent Hill on the PSP with her, and then, you know, we can both, you know, play at the same time. And that's when I discovered streaming. I got onto Twitch, and then the rest is history, as you know they say. This desk here, it's seen a number of changes as well as, you know, like transformations. It's a printer, I don't know how else to explain. You know, you scan stuff, you can print it, you know. The Samus, you know, returns, Samus and Metroid amiibos I have there. Then there's like these little rubber ducks over there, and I won those. I think I won like 3 or 4 of those on one of those like cheesy bootleg, you know, crane games. And if you keep going that way, you can see a number of boxes from the devices that I've owned throughout the years. This webcam I've actually, you know, had ever since Hyrule Warriors came out, and then eventually the wire like actually ripped, and so now I can't, you know, use it anymore. Then I also have my old camera, the Sanyo VPC CG102. That thing was awesome. That's how I made, you know, most of my action videos before the camera actually fell down the stairs and broke on me. And then also one of my favorite like purchases ever made was this here tripod. The entire reason I was able to make that, you know, how I stole a Game Boy Color video was with this. If I didn't have this thing, I don't know how I'd be able to record like all those animation shots, because this tripod I can actually, you know, bend and twist and whatever into like a billion, you know, angles. Every time you see like a cheesy, you know, animation in one of my videos, it all happens right here on this tiny little space, you know, on my desk. It's basically what you see, you know, in the shots. People keep asking for advice. They keep saying, should I get like a Game Boy Color or a Game Boy SP or something? And I would honestly recommend, if you don't have a 3DS already, go get yourself a PSP over here. The PSP is awesome. You can basically bootleg, you know, every single PlayStation 1 game, and then also like Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, and Game Boy SP games onto this thing. And then I also have some Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh cards here that I've used, you know, in a few videos. You go even lower and you'll find actually my collection of drawings. Back in the toddler day, I made like comics and stuff, and I'd keep them in notebooks. I show them off a little bit in the Game Boy Color video where you see my bootleg, you know, Pokemon creations. But yeah, if you look through it, you know, I actually, you know, haven't shown that before, but I have a few, you know, doodles I'm actually really proud of in there. If you keep going to the right here and you open this, you actually have basically postcards and, you know, random pictures here from the toddler days, and then also my collection of movie tickets. You go lower and you have an old VHS. That's how I used to record, you know, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Skyward Sword. Basically my endings to those are all recorded and uploaded onto YouTube. But I actually collect quarters. Ever since the toddler days, I was always fascinated by like the art on the back of a quarter, you know, and so I've been collecting that for 100 years. I have a wazoo, of course, you know. This is like a little stack of games I have that I basically play quite often, and I want to have them, you know, near me. The Super Game Boy right here lets you play original Game Boy games on the Super Nintendo, and I was actually playing through Pokemon Red, as you can see. This little packet here is full of, you know, the Crash Bandicoot paper cutouts, and I made that Crash Bandicoot review. All those little animation shots, all those little pieces of paper are right here. You know, I just have like a bootleg, I think it was maybe $15 keyboard that I use. The keys are kind of disappearing, as you can see. I'm missing the tab and, you know, caps lock key somewhere. This keyboard keeps falling on me a million times. You can see on the side here, it actually looks like somebody ate it. You know, I probably got hungry one day. And then I almost forgot, I also have this Winnie the Pooh mouse pad here that I've been using for like 100 years, you know. My mom gave me this, you know, a billion years ago. Here under my desk, this little tiny, you know, laptop I have is good for when you're on the toilet and you need to, you know, look up Reddit and whatever, you know, just chilling. That's basically what I use this laptop for. You keep going to the right here and you have a few titles. Just at Radio, which is awesome. We have Sly Cooper, which is good stuff. And then what is this? Sonic Riders. I don't know how this got in here. I'm just gonna, you know, throw that over there. We don't talk about Sonic Riders. That game is bootleg. My capture card is actually in here. It kind of just chills here. It's a little bit bootleg on me and it kind of just sits there. So I don't like disturb it randomly by like kicking it or something. But the main thing here, the main like attraction, I guess, is my computer. If you saw my Patreon video over here, you know that I use this hunk of junk bootleg thing. It's basically falling apart on me. It doesn't have like a keyboard or anything. The screen is completely, you know, turd. Since I made that Patreon video to now, a lot of my equipment has actually fallen apart on me, and so I actually can't use this computer anymore. Every 5 minutes it freezes and deadlocks. So I think it's time, you know, to say goodbye to this little, you know, hunk of turd that I've been using, you know, for like the last 5 years. But now instead, I'm able to use the chat computer here for like basically editing and also, you know, doing the streams and whatnot. It's not the best. It's kind of a bootleg as well. You know, I have to keep the bottom plate, you know, removed. Otherwise it's gonna overheat, but it does the job over here. I have a monitor right here. I don't know what brand it is, but I actually got it from Craigslist. This is probably one of the greatest purchases I have ever made. Before, what I used to do, I would edit on my, you know, bootleg, you know, computer screen. It, you know, start to like glitch on me. I wouldn't be able to see anything, you know, and it just made things basically impossible. 2 years ago, I actually bought this monitor and it completely changed everything. I was like, oh, I can finally see again. But what we have on the desk here are basically these two speakers. The one on the right actually holds, you know, the little tiny TV here. I beat the original Half-Life on this thing, and when I'm editing, I actually use it to, you know, like play like Deus Ex or, you know, PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 1 games. The speaker on the left here actually just has like some random stuff. You know, you have Gur from Invader Sim, you have a potato head, you have Pikachu, as well as some little figurines and whatnot. On the actual desk here, this little green thing, this is what I like to call the fake table. If you watch some of my older videos and I would just place that, you know, on top of like pillows and boxes, it's not even a table, it's just a green board, you know, like a wooden board, and then I would just talk, you know, and act as if this was my, you know, fake table. And so now I use it as like an actual table. I have my old capture card that I haven't used in 100 years, and then this little clay dude I made. He's basically holds all my like needles and, you know, toothpicks and whatever I need. And then if you keep going to the left here, you'll see my PlayStation TV. I actually picked this up when it was for $20, and it's kind of like a mini console that's full of everything from PSP to Vita to PlayStation 1 games. I actually use this giant, you know, camcorder, and then the signal outputs not in HD. It actually plugs into my old capture card here, and then it takes the signal into the computer. This little camera here that I got for $10 at a garage sale, it's a ultra flip, you know, HD little thingamajig. This is the camera I used when I was on the roof, as well as like the behind the scenes videos, or like cooking with Chevy T. I use this little camera. Then if you keep going down, you can see my speakers themselves. You can control them from here. It takes, you know, everything from CDs to cassettes. If you take a look above the speakers, I actually have these old yearbooks from, you know, my toddler days. In my high school, you know, senior photo here, I actually, you know, have like an afro, and it's kind of funny. This thing, it's not a normal ukulele, it's actually an electric ukulele. I don't have an amp or anything, so I can't like shred out, you know, on this thing, but I forced myself to learn how to play it after, you know, the ex-babes, I guess. It was their birthday, and, you know, I basically wrote a, you know, song for her, and then the week after that, you know, she broke up with me, of course. Then if you keep going lower over here, you see this white box. I'm a huge fan of the Lego Dragon series. Each of these little figurines, be it like the knights or the ogres or anything, they have magnets inside them. You can actually pick up, you know, these little dudes with, you know, the dragon's claw, and it looks like he's, you know, eating them and stuff, and it's really, really awesome. Like this entire boat was being, you know, pulled by like this ice dragon, and, you know, these like little like ogre dudes, they have whips, you know, telling like the dragon to go faster and stuff. It's really cool. In the basement, I actually have like this wooden treasure chest full of, you know, more of these, you know, dragon sets. So if one day I have, you know, more room or anything, I'd like to, you know, put them out on display and stuff. If you go up here to this entire wall, you can see completely like all my doodles and everything that I have cut out here. Every single year, you know, at the end of the school year, I would just cut out the drawings, you know, from like my homework, and then I would put them onto my wall here. And this one I actually got from a caricature artist back in, I think, like 8th grade, I believe. We were about to graduate or something, and so they took us, you know, on a field trip to Six Flags. And I'm afraid actually to look behind some of these drawings, because I know, you know, the past like 10 years I've been here, I swear there are like bugs behind there that, you know, either died, you know, behind these pieces of paper, or I accidentally squashed, you know, like spiders or something. You actually have this little lamp, and I have these magnetic turtles up there, you know, holding down a piece of paper to keep the light from getting like too bright over here. But if you look up here, I actually have about 300 or 500 paper cranes. Some of them are like, you know, gum wrappers or like from lollipops and whatever. And I remember when I was in like high school, sitting there in study hall for, I forget how long study hall was. I think it was like 40 minutes or something in high school. And then just creating, you know, one of these things. And then if you keep, you know, going to the right here, you have a giant window, which I actually threw Raul out, you know, like once, I believe, for a video. And this is also how I clean my turtle.
Here's the window. In case you've never seen a window before, this is what it looks like. There are bricks on the side, bricks on the other side, and then the roof, I guess, I don't know.
I got this turntable from Goodwill, I believe. You know, it was only like a few dollars. And then if you keep going down here, there's nothing really, you know, fancy underneath the turntable. It's all being held up by like this cabinet here. You just have some random toys and whatnot, you know. Then behind that, I actually have a chia pet. So if anything, I'd actually like to try that, you know, and grow it. And then if you open this drawer here, it's just full of like random, you know, yarns and whatever that I, you know, kind of have at hand, I guess. A little, you know, flute over here if I want to play the flute. Now, if you go back up here, you'll actually see my plants. This pineapple here, it's been growing for the past 5 years. If you check my earlier videos, like the action video, you can actually see just how small this pineapple is and then, you know, how long it took to grow into that. If you keep going down, you have a styrofoam incubator. I basically created that for my turtles. And so now I just use them for like cables I kind of use often. And then behind here is like this garbage can, you know, bin. I use it to hold like these, you know, like holder things you see here, these like cardboard things. It has about 3 or 4 Zelda posters in them, all given to me from Club Nintendo, and I was able to get almost every single one of them except the Wind Waker one. And then if you keep going to the right from that, you know, you have this little rack thing with the wheels. Basically the top layer here is where I have the Wii U set right now. As much of a failure as it was, you know, for Nintendo, it's actually one of my favorite consoles ever made. If I had this in the toddler days and if I had access to the internet, I would have like basically years worth of, you know, gaming right there alone. And then moving down from the Wii U, you have just random games stacked there, you know, Dreamcast, PlayStation 2, Xbox, GameCube, and then below that is just some like random like cleaning stuff. This liquid latex, that's how I made Frankie over there. If you keep going past the plants over here, you actually make it to the main section of this room. We start off with, you know, my like game boxes. Most of my, you know, collections here, it has to do with the Legend of Zelda series, and I've actually finished every single Zelda game that came out, aside from, you know, Breath of the Wild. That game is pretty huge, and, you know, it probably will take me another year. And so yeah, the first thing over here on the side is the Wind Waker HD, you know, special edition box. This was actually the first, you know, Slovak Mountain Man episode where I took a Yandra and unboxed, you know, this like special edition here. I have my Link Between Worlds, you know, box right there. I think I did an unboxing of that too, right before I went to the Zelda Symphony. I really didn't need the new 3DS XL here, the Majora's Mask version, but I couldn't resist. You know, Nintendo always gets me with their special editions, and this one was no different. Then if you keep going up here, one of my favorite, you know, controllers ever made is the Wii U Pro controller over here. This is the Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword Figma action figure. I remember doing like a little cheesy animation with it. Link, he's like fully posable. You can put him in all kinds of poses. You can switch his face around and stuff to a different expression. It is really cool. Basically in Smash Bros, you know, they brought Cloud to Smash Bros, and Link, you know, can take down Cloud and, you know, have a lovely time. But that's not what I wanted. I actually wanted Sephiroth to battle Link and, you know, to see who would be victorious over here. And so since Nintendo couldn't do it officially, I'm gonna do it, you know, my own way and, you know, make my fan fiction over here come true. Basically this figurine here, this box, belongs to the Sephiroth figurine, but I believe the person on eBay actually painted it himself and modified it to make it look like the Advent Children, you know, Sephiroth. The Wind Waker, you know, Ganondorf figurine is basically Ganondorf's, you know, pose in the final battle against him and Link, you know. It is nice to have, you know, an official like Wind Waker like merchandise over here, because I barely see anything for a Wind Waker. And then the next, you know, figurine over here I have on the wall is Hatsune Miku. I fell in love with the Project Diva, you know, rhythm games that are kind of hard, but they're really awesome. And so kind of to like show my appreciation, I guess, for that series, I picked up the figurine here. This is the art of Final Fantasy. This is, I think, everything from the first game to the 10th game. It's really heavy to hold with one hand. You see all kinds of stuff in here, like character designs, you see like monster designs. It is really awesome. Ask me like 6 years ago if I like Final Fantasy, and I'd have given you the middle finger, or I would have said something like, Final Fantasy, I don't like RPGs. RPGs are stupid, you know, I don't like waiting for the battle to, you know, yeah. And then next to the Art of Final Fantasy box over here are the Kiss, you know, figurines over here. I got these from the flea market for like a few dollars, and you basically put them together and then you glue them, and they kind of just stand and do that pose, you know, on the door over there, that giant Kiss poster. This is where they came from. I've seen a few episodes of The Office, and so I've always had, you know, just like this calendar here, and he is just, you know, making sure I sleep well and whatever. I actually made this, you know, cheesy looking Pac-Man wall art. It's just out of pieces of paper and stuff, but I have all 4 of the ghosts here, as well as Pac-Man and the Miss Pac-Man over there in the corner. And then up here it says, thank you all, Paul. That was actually my pal from 100 years ago. I'm the one on the right over here. Basically the reason my face is like that, kind of grumpy, was because his mom actually, you know, had cake and put it on my nose. I was like, I'm not smiling for that, you know, there's bootleg over here. This wall is finished and completed, and now we're gonna, you know, continue with, you know, the middle one over here. Basically we have 3 shelves here, the top one, the middle one, and then the bottom one, all covered covered with game collections, movies, all sorts of stuff I want on display and kind of stuff that I really am, you know, proud of owning. These shelves, they've started to bend. As you can see, they're starting to bend and they're actually held up by, you know, the bottom shelf. If I moved, you know, that like wooden box over there, the top shelf would fall. The, you know, Wii box behind there, this middle shelf will fall. The boxes that are underneath this shelf, then this one would fall. Basically, it's almost fallen on me like 3 times, but I was here to luckily catch it before, you know, the entire thing fell. I don't really buy strategy guides, but these came with, you know, some of the games that I bought, you know, such as Final Fantasy Tactics, Twilight Princess, and then Final Fantasy X-2. And then you keep moving to the right here, and we start off with the PlayStation 2 games. Then you keep going to the original Xbox games, and then these GameCube games over here. Basically, you have Mario Kart Double Dash, my favorite Mario Kart, Super Mario Sunshine, which is also my favorite, you know, Mario game, and then Star Fox Adventures. And then you keep moving to the right here, and there's just kind of like random Wii games. The ones I'd recommend, you know, that I showed over here would be Metroid Prime 3 and No More Heroes 2. And if you keep moving to the right here of the Wii collection, you have everything from, you know, cheesy 80s horror to like, you know, comedy. Forgetting Sarah Marshall here, I'd recommend it. It's good stuff. And then the film stuck in between both Rocky and Rambo is actually Reign Over Me. This film actually got me into a game over here that I would have otherwise not even known about, and that is The Shadow of Colossus. If you go to the right, you have a very special film, The Exorcist. This is one of my favorite, you know, horror films ever made. I remember going to the library with my stepbrother and I remember one time he showed me this game called The Maze Game. After about, I think, level 3, basically a huge face of the Exorcist like girl, you know, like appears on the screen, and then like a scream happens in the background. And I was wearing headphones when I was at that library, and so it gave me a heart attack. You know, I was sitting there in my seat, I almost pooped myself, like I was frozen in fear. That's how spooky it was. And then this one right here, this movie right here, nobody seems to know, nobody seems to talk about. You are missing out. You are honestly missing out. Tremors over here. This movie is about these giant sandworms. They can hear you. They can't see, but they can hear you, and then they come from the ground and, you know, kill you basically. It is awesome. I remember watching this in the toddler days and being blown away. It was all done with practical effects, meaning that they actually built, you know, these like giant like worm puppet creatures and moved them around and stuff to make it look like this thing is alive and it's coming through the ground and everything. And I've always been fascinated with that ever since the toddler days. One of the reasons I kind of like got into filmmaking basically was because, you know, of this film. And in one film nobody seems to talk about is Surf Ninjas. This is one of my favorite films from the childhood. My brothers and I, we watched it so many times that the actual tape in the like cassette actually broke on us, you know, like it got stuck in the, you know, TV. We had like a built-in TV VCR thing, and so for like 100 years I've been trying to figure out what scene we stopped, you know, watching on basically before it broke. And then if you keep moving to the right, you have these like wooden figurines used for drawing. All these clothes you see on here was created by me with like socks, old shirts and whatever, and all hand sewn. Back in 8th grade I had a science project and I decided to make a volcano. I didn't have it painted yet, and so I asked my teacher if I can give it to her, you know, tomorrow, or if I can show her a picture, but she said no, and I got a failing grade. And so, you know, that's pretty bootleg. I even made once like a turtle out of a coat hanger over here, you know. It's kind of weird, but it, you know, resembles a turtle. I'm not actually sure why I did this. And then that's basically the top shelf here, and when you move down to the middle one, you're greeted to the Donkey Kong, you know, bongos over here. These are controllers similar to the GameCube controller. You can use the bongos instead. There's only about 4 games though that supported it, and I have 3 of those 4. The one that best utilizes, you know, these bongos in the game is Donkey Kong Jungle Beat here. Basically you control Donkey Kong by, you know, tapping the bongos over here. Imagine doing that on a platformer over here. I actually have some perler characters that I made myself with those perler beads, you know, found by the TV. If you want to get into perler beads, I'd recommend finding like a brand that actually has them categorized separately by colors. Then you also need like these little board things. The main ones that I use are these yellow ones right here. And then if you keep going down here, you just have some random art supplies and notebooks. And then I just have, you know, just these random figurines over here. But this is kind of cool because you can pull it back and then the wheels actually go. So Donkey Kong, you can make him go flying, you know, out the window or something. One of my friends came over and he actually threatened me to use, you know, my computer because he wanted to play RuneScape, I think. But basically, I think he was addicted or something. And I told him, you know, if he solves this Rubik's Cube, he can. And so he peeled off my stickers. And then he attacked me, basically. You know, like he grabbed me by the neck and attacked me. And I'm like, what the turd? Get out of here, you turd. Underneath that one, though, is a electronic Rubik's Cube. I'd have all of my fingers on the Rubik's Cube itself like this. You know, like all the buttons clicked at the, you know, same time, and I'd go underneath the cover so it's completely dark, and then I would just watch for the colors, you know, like if the green flashes, and it was good stuff. I remember going really fast eventually, and I think my record, I think it was like 50 or something, you know, like I was able to do like 50 turns or whatever, because this is one of the coolest things ever. I spent maybe like 2 weeks trying to figure out how the turd, you know, I'm supposed to like solve this. There's 3 orbs in this thing, and you're supposed to get those color like balls into like these different, you know, bubbles, and then you use these dials up here at the top and then at the bottom to like spin the direction and stuff, and it is interesting. It is really cool. And this huge ginormous robot thing is a velociraptor. This thing is awesome, and next to it is like a little baby velociraptor basically, but you can do like a number of things, like make it roar, you can open its mouth, you can make it spin, you know, its tail move, you can make it walk faster, you can make it stop. And if you actually look at my childhood comics, I made, you know, my characters go like back to the past, and they were fighting these like robotic, you know, velociraptors. It was awesome. I actually have Russian dolls, wooden Russian dolls from Russia, and yes, you can actually take them apart if you're wondering. They're exactly the same if you've seen in Toy Story, you know, they come apart like this. They're well painted, and I always like, you know, looking at the little tiny derp over here. Just make sure you don't lose the pieces, because as you can see, you can kind of like easily, you know, kind of like scatter them about and not know like which one goes to which thing. And you keep moving to the left here, and you're greeted with these, you know, various like plug and plays over here. This Atari one, I remember having a lot of fun with the volleyball game, and then the Namco plug and play, my favorite game on there was Mappy. This one actually has a special place in my heart. I actually don't know where it's from. I don't know if it's a toy or like a cartoon or something, or a game, but the reason it's special to me is because my friend actually gave me this before I moved, you know. That was the same pal who, you know, introduced me to the Super Nintendo games like, you know, Link to the Past, Mega Man X, and basically the one who got me into, you know, the Super Nintendo when the only 2 games I had were Donkey Kong Country 1 and 2. But basically his influence and, you know, the like games he showed me, I'll never forget that. You know, he was my best pal. I always wonder, you know, every now and then, you know, randomly in my thoughts, I always wonder if he would ever remember me, you know, as much as I remember him. And then if you keep going back here, you have the NES action set, you know, box. Basically, I did an unboxing of this, and it came with 13 games. 2 of those games included Chrysalis, which is an awesome RPG, and then Ninja Gaiden. This is a little bit, you know, bootleg, I guess, I don't know, but it's very special to me too. I remember my mama making me this. It's a wooden egg, and she just drew this with a Sharpie, you know, like a little face. But Mr. Bunny over here, you may recognize from the Animal Crossing video that I made, you know, dancing with my bunny over here. My mom told me that she gave it to me, I think like the first like month or something when I was born, and I would like hold it, and basically I was like the same size as this bunny. And now that I've grown up and everything, you know, this bunny is, you know, still here with me, you know, after all these years. And then also like a stash of like birthday cards and, you know, just like cards that I've collected throughout the years. But my favorite one here, this one right here, if you open this, I think she went to like the store to get it with Pap. Listen up, Sister Mary Margaret Mayhem has a special birthday wrap just for you.
I hear that. It's your birthday. That's the word in the hood. You might want to celebrate, but you better be good. Oh, I tell you what not to do, but where would I begin? Just assume that if it's fun, it's a sin. Oh, yeah. Superior.
That's the greatest thing ever. Superior peace. And then you keep moving to the left hand. It's just a toolbox, you know, the one I made in Woods class. But you go below here, you have those figurines I was talking about earlier. Link does like a backflip or something, you know, comes back with the Master Sword. Sephiroth just like whoosh, stabs Link. He's like, and then, you know, flies him in the air, does like a body slam suplex or something. That would be the coolest thing ever. And then behind that, you actually have my Legend of Zelda Wind Waker right here, as well as the physical version of the Wind Waker HD right there. It's in a very, you know, like special spot. It's kind of like a little shrine. Both of these copies, like I said, this is one of my favorite games ever made. My Super Nintendo collection mostly is, you know, kind of small, but it consists of mainly RPGs like Secret of Mana, Secret of Evermore, Illusion of Gaia, Final Fantasy VI, and, you know, Mystic Quest over here. And I got these for I think like $10 each or something from an old guy in the flea market. He didn't know how much these were worth, and so you can just imagine my face as I'm standing there trying to hold my excitement in, because I got a steal of a deal on these, and that poor old guy, he didn't know they were worth much more. I have this little like pouch thing, which I actually used for school. You know, it's nothing fancy, it's just like some rulers and whatever. But the reason I want to open this is because there's something I want to show you here. This calculator right here. This is basically one of the reasons that I passed math and science class, because I added, you know, custom notes onto this thing. And I remember spending many lunch periods, you know, just typing away on this thing, one key at a time. And I think I did that for the entire week and was able to fit every single page of my study guides onto here. And if any of my teachers are actually watching this video, then, you know, I apologize for doing that. But, you know, back in the high school days, it is the only thing you could do, you know, to survive, basically. And then if you keep moving over here across the shelf, you actually see the first 2 Nintendo 64 games I ever bought. I didn't have a Nintendo 64, you know, back in the toddler days, and I bought one on eBay. But once you get one, you really have to get, you know, Majora's Mask as well as Ocarina of Time. I honestly prefer Majora's Mask over this game. This one had a very slow start, and then, you know, eventually it kind of got, you know, pretty swell, but it didn't really captivate me as much as... And it's easily my second favorite Zelda game ever made. You know, first place being of course Wind Waker. Basically the bottom shelf is divided into 2 sections, the front row and then the back row over here. And so here, starting with the left, basically this was my last gift from Club Nintendo, alongside that break sign that I have, you know, and I use for the streams. Inside I have basically all of my 3DS games are on here, you know, the physical cards. But what's cool is that this actually has, you know, number of multiple, you know, like reversible covers. You actually have these homemade 3DS covers, you know. When I created the Rhythm Heaven Megamix video, this is Rhythm Heaven Megamix, you know, supposed to be like Johnny Cash or something. And then here's also Mother 3. And then you move to the right and you just have some more, you know, modern games, you know, that I got from either the thrift store or online or something. Super Mario Galaxy number 1 and 2. I love these games. This is probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite game on the Wii. And then moving on to the right over here, you have some of my Wii U games. All of these, aside from Hyrule Warriors, I would honestly recommend picking up if you have the chance. Do yourself a favor and, you know, pick up this game. I'm hoping Nintendo like ports it to the Switch or something, fixes the loading times, and then, you know, lets other people play it as well that didn't get the chance to do that on the Wii U. I'm a huge fan of the original. This one is very hard though, number 3, because you have to control 3 different characters all at once. The multiplayer bingo in this game is brutal. I would start getting quiet and then get really angry and stuff. And I get very competitive for some reason, you know, with my bingo over here. Xenoblade Chronicles X here, actually, you know, I had to stop playing. I woke up, I would stream, you know, the game for like 10 hours. I'd go to sleep thinking about the game, and then I'd reset and do that for the entire week. It drove me a little crazy, and I spent I think like 90 hours, you know, playing this entire game in that week. And so I haven't actually gone back to it since, because, you know, I don't want that addiction to come back. And then on the right here, you have some big boxes for like special editions and whatnot. Fun fact, I actually own this game 3 times. I have the original GameCube version right here. I have the one that came out on the Wii basically around the same week, like the port. And now I have the HD one right here. It includes the entire original 80s series He-Man, all 130 episodes on 16 DVDs here, top 20 favorite episodes on 2 DVDs of the 1990s He-Man, and then 39 episodes of the like new 2002 and 2004 He-Man. I have this really weird book, Nintendo Heroes, Link and the Portal of Doom. Stickers inside, look at that, stickers included. I have this little tiny, you know, collection of Game Boy Color games over here. I actually remember, you know, playing this game on my friend's original Game Boy. It's the same pal that actually ruined my, you know, Rubik's Cube over there by removing the stickers. And so yeah, that's what you get over here. I smuggled your, you know, copy of Kirby's Dream Land on the original Game Boy. This right here is one of my favorite like possessions in this entire room. It actually holds PlayStation 1 games in here. This is how my brothers and I, we basically had got our games. I don't know where my mom's friend got these from. Like I said, I don't know if he stole these games or not. And, you know, it kind of basically turned me into the person I am today. And now that the entire, you know, bottom row over here is removed, as you can see, it's a lot cleaner here. You know, every like title is alphabetically organized. That's basically what it was like before I got all those, you know, stacks of games and whatnot. And then behind that are some of my NES collections. And then also one of my favorite RPGs ever made was Crystal is here. I've never actually finished this game myself and would like to do that one day. Some of these, you know, NES RPGs actually have internal save batteries. And so I remember playing this game for a very long time and then turning the NES off, thinking I put save in the game, and then completely erasing my entire data. And there was also one point where you're like going through like this maze or something, and the closest thing to me was like a piece of napkin. And so I actually drew the entire map on that napkin, and then I was able to, you know, beat that level with my little napkin here. The story with, you know, the Ninja Gaiden series for me was basically, it started off when I got the, you know, Nintendo action set over here on eBay. You can't save in Ninja Gaiden, and if you die, you have to start from the first level. But after 3 days, I kind of learned how to speedrun the game, and then I eventually, you know, beat it. And then if you keep moving to the right over here, you get into the PlayStation 1 section, and I'm satisfied with this little, you know, collection for now. And most of these are, you know, RPGs. I have about like 5 or 6, you know, Final Fantasy games over here. And if you keep going to the right, I actually have, you know, one game that I'm proud that I was able to get, Tomba, over here. I've talked about Tomba many times. It's an awesome like side-scrolling, you know, platformer. And Pap, he's actually told me before that if he ever makes, you know, $1 billion, he's gonna get together, you know, the original developers and create a Tomba 3. And then if you keep going to the right here, basically starting off with the DS games, I have Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks here. Many people don't seem to like this, but I love those two games. They're very difficult though for a Zelda game, and I was actually surprised. Then I actually have like one boxed, you know, Game Boy Advance game, and that is Yu Yu Hakusho over here. Basically this TV series is something I grew up on. Like, this was one of my favorite shows ever made, and so when I saw this in the store, I'm like, what the what? It's only like a few dollars, I'm gonna pick this up. And you know, to your surprise, this game kind of sucks. But then you find, you know, you stumble upon this right here, Rise of Nations. This game single-handedly got me into the RTS real-time strategy like genre. I also have the sequel here, Rise of Legends, which I picked up in the flea market. I remember my mom's friend actually told me, you know, I can keep one of them, either Flight Simulator X or Rise of Nations. And I went with this, and I'm glad I, you know, kept this, you know, as a toddler instead of that game. And then on the right here, you have, you know, nothing fancy here. I have another, you know, turtle, of course, you know, another turtle figurine. I really like how detailed this thing is. And then underneath that are the Pop Vinyl figurines. And so I actually bought the He-Man one, and then the Sharknado one over here I got for free. And then all the way to the right is basically my 3DS collection right here. These are just the boxes. All of the like actual cartridges are in that, you know, like Nintendo cartridge thing. And then holding everything up, you know, basically on this side of the shelf is the 25th anniversary Red Mario, you know, limited edition Wii over here. And so yeah, if I knew the Wii U was gonna come out, I wouldn't have bought a Wii. That basically finishes, you know, the entire game shelf here. And so now we're going to move on to these posters. The first one you see here is actually from The Last of Us. Basically, I got it from GameStop, and I think it was like the last like day or two or something. They were open, and then they were gonna finally close the doors for good. I saw that Naughty Dog logo, and you know, it reminded me of Crash. And so I asked the dude if I can have it, and you know, he kind of gave me a death stare, and then he actually gave it to me. And so it's been sitting here on my wall ever since. I've actually used this doodle in one of my videos. If you're a fan of Steven Universe, you'll recognize, you know, this doodle as a reference. And then if you look up, I recently got this huge Breath of the Wild poster, but behind this Breath of the Wild poster here was the Skyward Sword poster. If I want, I can just switch between the two. They're really nice quality, you know, they don't cost like $1 billion. And then if you look to the left over here, these are some costumes that I actually made on the stream for Squibbles. You can actually see my homemade cardboard weapons that I used in most of my videos. I believe they were first shown in my cheesy video, you know, the chase down. I just looked up a silhouette of, you know, like a pistol, and then I drew that outline on a piece of cardboard about 7 times. I cut that cardboard out, I glued them together, and then I drew with a Sharpie the little design in the corner. But they did the job, you know, it made the video that much more, you know, cheesy. And then so I'm going to lay down over here and actually show you what's on the ceiling. So yeah, the first thing you basically see is Ocarina of Time 3D. Right next to that though is Attack on Titan. And then if you zoom in right here in the corner, you have Yu Yu Hakusho. And then right next to that one is actually Seiko from Corpse Party. She's my favorite character in the series, and so I actually printed that one out myself. That little dwarf thing I think my cousin gave me. And then a giant Grand Theft Auto 5 picture from, you know, the release day. And then probably my favorite poster on this entire wall is this huge hand painted, you know, animal mural. Every time I lay here and just kind of look up and stare at the ceiling, I always get lost in thought, you know, when I'm just looking at, you know, the amount of details. It is so cool. And then I got that Mortal Kombat X one on the release day of the game because I was actually at GameStop picking up Xenoblade Chronicles on the 3DS. And then with those posters out of the way, we're actually finished with this entire section of the room. And so you may be asking yourself, why exactly did we come back to this scene here if we already finished, you know, recording everything? And that's basically, these shelves here have been causing me, you know, many difficult problems throughout, you know, the past like 10 years. And even the bottom like supporter things aren't really, you know, working anymore. The like screws are loose, and I think 3 or 4 times they almost fell on me, but luckily I was here to kind of like catch the fall basically. And so what I'm going to do right now, since I have everything recorded and I don't really need this anymore, I'm going to completely take this down, you know, pull on these, you know, purple strings here and have the shelves fall and collapse, you know, and basically hopefully nothing gets destroyed. I've been kind of waiting for this moment for, you know, 100 years. I don't know how well this is gonna go, but here we go. In 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Oh, I did not expect that. That entire thing completely fell over. Look at that. You can see right here. This is the supporter thing right there. Right there. There it is. This entire thing just body slammed the floor. Okay, give me 2 seconds. I'm gonna, you know, switch the camera angle so you can have a better shot. And so as you can see, you know, everything completely fell over. This one shelf, you know, the top one, is just kind of hanging here from the side. I think the bottom one fell into like the back hole here of the bed. And then, you know, the third one, I think like the lowest one that I had, that one wasn't unaffected at all because, you know, I didn't have the strings tied to it or anything. But yeah, basically look at that. I don't know what broke. I hope nothing got destroyed, but it was completely worth it. That was awesome. Can you imagine being asleep though and that falling on you? That almost happened to me like 4 times. I'm going to, if anything, you know, remove this entire shelf and, you know, put in a new one. It's kind of wobbling. I don't know if you can see that. Only thing now is I have to clean this. Otherwise, you know, I'm not going to be able to sleep anywhere. I don't think any games or anything got, you know, destroyed. This box too, the NES, you know, box itself is completely fine. You know, it's in, you know, perfect shape over here. All the discs, all the games, all the plug-in plays. Everything seems to be fine. Even the robot itself, you know, the giant huge robot here that I have, everything is, you know, a-okay. And we're actually going to go to the last wall over here that I need, and then completing the video, you know, overall. I hope it's not going for too long, but I hope that, you know, you find it just as entertaining as I do. So we'll see each other then. Here we go. And so now that, you know, the shelves over there have been completely destroyed, we're going to Papa Squat a little bit, you know, lower here so I can actually fit into frame and talk about the final section of this room tour. So as you're walking through the door and into my room, this is actually the first like wall you're probably going to notice. We're going to start over here with the camera bags. These are pretty self-explanatory. You know, they house my cameras over here as well as like equipment like, you know, lenses or, you know, the microphone and whatnot. And the thing that's awesome about this bag is because of its weight and its like small, like basically size, I can fit everything I need into here and not have to worry about, you know, digging through random, you know, pockets and stuff, trying to find like a lens or, you know, another card or whatever, a battery, and kind of miss either, you know, my video opportunity, like if I'm recording a scene or something. Then this white thing here, I actually bought this to put on Fifi's tank over here. I was originally planning to make like a basking area for Fifi, and then if you keep looking in here, you just have some random objects, basically. Luigi's mustache from like the Luigi's Mansion streams that we do. One of my favorite toys actually is just this weird looking eyeball I've had ever since the toddler days. And then this knife over here might look familiar to any fans of my cheesy action videos, and it's just been sitting here ever since I created, you know, the chase down video. And then similar to that, you know, in that video, I still have that phone, the little like kind of broken bootleg phone I used, you know, to kind of throw it to the side. The story about this, you know, race car here is that my brother and I, we were actually in the Boy Scouts, and so this is the thing I made. It was kind of cool. I had these little bootleg stickers I remember like cutting from a magazine, but I didn't win, you know, first place. I don't think I won anything, but even then I had a lot of fun creating this, you know, with my brother. I remember, you know, having to get one of these for school, and we would learn how to, you know, play like Mary Had a Little Lamb or, you know, random songs, but I haven't actually used this in 1,000 years. And then these little bags over here are basically the entire reason I call this little section the makeup area. That's because I have everything from like random paint that I picked up, you know, at like the thrift store, liquid latex, you know, like appliances, scars, you know, these fake ears you can put on, these teeth. And then above all of this, you have a giant mirror here. Right next to it, I have this poster from Slovakia. My dad actually gave me this one, and it's of this, you know, babe model or something, you know. I have a straw hat over here. I have, you know, Dracula's hat over here. I have a Santa Claus hat if I need. I have Diddy Kong over here, you know, beautiful mask, you know, party hat, the pirate hat, maybe, you know, old man if I want to become an old hag. Basically kind of like wigs and masks I have in this little tiny area, you know, so I can use for any of my videos and whatever. You have this ginormous, you know, homemade, you know, Splatoon splat gun over here. And it's made, you know, out of paper mache completely, as well as I think cardboard. This orange gallon, you know, like ammo tank up here on top of the gun is actually made up of the same material that I made my Slipknot clown mask of. After the concert was finished, it basically completely fell apart. And so I reused all that, you know, paper. And the only thing that actually survived from that mask is the nose itself, which I have, you know, laying laying somewhere around here in this room. And then right next to him is actually the Pokemon band, sign that I created for my, How I Stole a Game Boy Color video. If you haven't seen Gravity Falls, like the actual show, there's about 2 seasons, from start to finish, and it's honestly one of the best like shows I have ever seen. I wish I was a toddler growing up with, that show around. And then hidden right behind this box, perfectly out of sight here, is actually my longboard. This is a loaded Vanguard here that I actually got, I think, in 2008, but I remember my cousin actually showing me a video on YouTube called Loaded Dervish, and that video was so inspirational and so awesome that he himself got a longboard. And so I basically spent the entire summer working as a lifeguard and saving up enough cash, and I got a longboard over here. And if you're wondering, I ride Goofy over here, which is with my right foot, on the board, and then my left one pedaling. And then I can't do regular, which is, the opposite of that. For some reason, I become like an old hag, when I try doing that. If you've ever been onto my stream, you've most likely seen, like Alice Cooper's like face blurred out in the background. I just got that randomly, I picked it up at a bookstore, and it actually came with an Alice Cooper mask, which I used for one of my videos. And so the top picture here is actually from like a Kiss, like figurines, and they all came with like a separate poster. If you got all 4, you can tape them together and then, create this huge giant like poster here. I actually forgot to talk about this. Basically, this is like a cardboard box here, and what's inside is a poster I handmade myself for PAP. I think I spent around 100 hours the entire year using the Wii U gamepad and a mouse, as well as, Photoshop and Illustrator, to kind of create this thing in total. And yes, you heard me correct. I used a mouse to basically outline and, draw and, add all the shadows and basically create this thing from scratch. Similar to how I am the Slovak mountain man, PAP, like his little like thing online is the greasy turkey. And so I made, the greasiest turkey I could ever, think of. It is really cool. I got really creative and, I took my time with this, but I'm honestly surprised how well it actually turned out. And so, yeah, it's just full of little like references between, him and I that we've had, throughout the years over here. I don't know how much Pap actually enjoys this, like poster, but I like it a lot. And so that's basically this entire section, of the room here. And if we look down, right below here, we're gonna pop a squat right now. So now that we've, kind of scooted our way, down to this bottom section of this wall area here, I'm actually going to take my hat off because it's kind of, a little bit distracting here. There's this ginormous cabinet that, holds another, number of goodies. And then this little cabinet on the right over here actually used to be where I held my consoles on, I think I made this myself, but it turned out pretty swell and I used it for a while before I actually got my, the one I use right now. But there's this giant case over here I remember my mom's friend actually made for us. I think it houses about like 50 bootleg movies or something, but this was also the reason I actually got into Studio Ghibli. My favorite, film in this entire collection here is actually this bootleg, copy of Spirited Away. I actually remember, kind of skipping through many of these pages and seeing this cover, thinking it's something that I don't want to watch, I became a fan of Studio Ghibli ever since. The one thing that kind of stands out is this, my custom made, NES game. Basically, it's just like a copy of Super Mario Bros. Over here, but, with my secret, Legend of the Caveman, like label printed onto this. I remember every time I looked out the window as a toddler, I would always see like a car with one of these on their windows, 2 suction cup like Garfield dolls. And as derpy as they are, they have like a little, special place in my heart. These right here, Uzumaki series 1, 2, and 3. Junji Ito here is one of my favorite like manga artists. He makes like very interesting like hoarder stories and whatever. And his doodles actually, got me into like more like hoarder mangas and whatnot. And like any child, back in the day, I grew up with, Goosebumps stories as well. I don't think I've actually read the actual book, but the computer game, my brothers and I, we actually grew up on that. It's a little cheesy, but I remember kind of having a heart attack, that you're kind of like stuck in a comic book and these mutants and whatever are coming after you to take you down. And then over here is probably one of the books that inspired me to start reading, and it became one of my favorite books ever made. I'm actually thinking of doing like this read along video where I kind of just sit there in my chair or something and kind of read this story to the audience over here and record a video about that. This is part of the Shadow Children book series, which is I think like a collection of like 10 books or something. I've only read one of them called Among the Shadows. Between Hatchet and Among the Shadows, those 2 books were like my favorite growing up. It's definitely top notch, and I'd recommend reading through that yourself. Basically every time I beat a game, I'd actually record the ending on my VCR here, and then many years later I actually got a capture card and then I uploaded them onto YouTube. YouTube. And so I have about 6 of these tapes here, and if you keep moving over here, I actually have a DVD concert of, you know, like a Slipknot live, you know, performance over here. I basically avoided them for a long time, and then once, you know, I finally gave them a chance, and I became a fan ever since then. And so if you remember my, you know, Game Boy Color video, I actually used, you know, both the coloring book over here and then Pap's, you know, folder in that video. And many people were asking me where I got all my Pokemon stuff. It was all collected throughout the years, you know, like I guess we just randomly got Pokemon stuff and my mom kept it all and then used that in my video, and it turned out swell. And then moving on, we actually have some vinyls over here. The only thing that sucks about the vinyls is you have to, you know, flip the side so you can, you know, play the other, you know, like tracks on the other like side. I have Ozzy Osbourne. You gotta have Ozzy Osbourne. I love, you know, this man. I love this man. He's crazy, I swear. I don't really know much about Johnny Cash, but I picked it up because I really like his song Pain. Before I got these, I wasn't really a fan of Elvis, but the old hag that, you know, sold them to me gave them to me for like 25 cents. You've probably heard like at least one of their, you know, famous songs, House of the Rising Sun. Look it up on YouTube and you can thank me later. And the reason I actually got this, I think it was a few cents, was because of the theme song, Suicide is Painless. And then some more Elvis, you know, tunes over here, followed up with some more Elvis as well. This is Bruce Campbell. You've probably, you know, if you've seen Evil Dead, you know Bruce Campbell. I haven't read it yet, but I hear it's pretty good. He may, you know, look kind of like spooky and whatever and kind of give you a heart attack, but he's actually very intelligent, you know. Just watch some like interviews of him and, you know, whatever. And reading through this book is hardcore. You can actually appreciate just how awesome Ozzy is as a human being and just how insane he actually is. Both of these books, I Am Ozzy and this one right here, are really funny. I remember sitting there on the bus, you know, on my way to like school, and I'd be like, you know, chuckling over there, you know, reading like the tales he would say. And then some like random fan or something left a like steamy pile of dog turd, you know, right on his, you know, front porch, and like he burned it or something. I don't remember, but I was like, what the turd? I don't know who does that, but that's kind of, you know, brutal. This one was my childhood growing up, you know. I think my mama actually gave me this. It's kind of like a drawing book. If you look through it, you know, you can see, you know, it's kind of like little stories, little crossword puzzles and doodles and whatever. They might sound boring to people, but I like looking through them too. It's interesting to learn about, you know, like different cultures and just like random fun facts. The highest point in Bahrain is the Jabal ad Dukam, 443 feet. Here's just my backpack. You know, I basically, you know, backpack is a backpack. This isn't the one that, you know, I got from my dad's house. He, you know, actually hasn't responded to me. I asked him if we can get our original Xbox back. But whenever Pap got angry, be it like Turok Evolution or, you know, like Jet Set Radio Future, whenever he got angry, he would grab the controller, throw it as hard as he can on the ground. It would like bounce all over the place. It would break, and then we wouldn't be able to use it anymore. So with that said, we're gonna stand up here and basically finish the room tour. And with all of that, you know, basically said, ladies and gentlemen, we are finally here at the end of my room tour here. This is the first time in my entire life that I've actually spent, you know, so long in one room. We normally move like every like 2 or 3 years or something, and so I actually had the chance to kind of see how my like personality changed throughout the years, and it really shows in this, you know, video. Basically, as you can see in my room, I actually have about 160 gigabytes recorded footage just, you know, from like this room video alone. It was a lot of work, you know, just to get all these camera angles to, you know, basically work in my favor. And I spent about like 4 days almost, you know, non-stop, basically with, you know, a few hours of sleep, recording all this just so I can get it, you know, all finished in this video, and then, you know, easily so I can clean all this later. With that said, ladies and turds, I actually have a confession to make here. This entire video you just watched right now is a complete lie. Yes, this is my room, and yes, you know, it looks like this, but it is never, you know, this clean. This is actually the first time in 10 years that I, you know, was able to show you basically like clean parts of my room. I took away all the stuff that I didn't want the audience to see, like all the random junk I have, you know, laying around, and then I moved that, you know, behind the camera so you don't actually see that. Even though my room is normally like messy and stuff, this is the first time I've completely had to like take shelves down and kind of show you, you know, everything I wanted to show you and record. Everything is all over the place. The entire, you know, chair is full of, you know, all the things that was up on my shelf over there. But here, as you can see, these are the lights. I had to, you know, kind of like maneuver to, you know, get like the well lit like area right here, you see. In the corner, this one was the hardest though. I have 3, you know, strings of yarn kind of attached to this. If I actually turn it off, this will like, you know, remove about 80% of the light. Watch this. You see that? And it kind of looks dark and kind of ugly. With that said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all on another lovely video. Goodbye everybody. Goodbye. So it's been a few months since I've recorded this back in December 2017, and a few things have changed since then. The first being that one of my turtles, Swampot, has actually passed away recently. We found her almost 1 year ago, and she's actually been an extremely chill animal, which is quite a surprise, especially when compared to Fifi, who is the exact opposite. And I'm certain that Swampot is no longer alive, but in the slight chance that she might actually be hibernating, I've decided to instead release her back into a lake just in case. Now the next change is actually an improvement on my computer. Phil was lucky enough to find this PC thrown out while on his way back from work. Though I may not know just how good these specs actually are, I do know that this computer is an insane upgrade to the laptops I've previously worked with. I can now smoothly record, stream, and even set up a green screen without any difficulties or having to worry about the machine exploding on me. Editing videos has also been so quick and smooth that I was able to complete this entire video in over a month and a half, which would have taken much longer had I not used this computer. And now the final change, and actually the reason for making this room tour, is that after 10 years of living in that house, we've actually moved out. From uploading my first YouTube video with a derpy response for a cheesy contest when I barely even knew how to use an editing program, to having an idea of combining a Dazzle capture card with my giant camera or video game systems, which eventually started my streaming hobby, a lot has happened in the past decade, both good and bad. But I would have never expected any of it, especially just how much creating these videos have shaped me from being an extremely shy weirdo that mostly kept to himself into a much more confident and open oddball, happier than ever in life to have this opportunity with connecting to so many people. And if you were to tell my toddler self that there were others just like me that grew up with the same video game experiences, then I would have never believed you. Either way, thank you everyone for these last few years. It's been awesome teaching myself the ways of filmmaking and slowly growing a fan base together, which now supports my work directly through Patreon, so I can't express just how grateful I am for that. And if this room tour felt a bit rushed, that's because I was actually in the middle of moving while I recorded this entire video. But with careful planning, I used the daytime to help pack the entire house, unload boxes into a van, transport everything to the new location, and repeat this process for several hours for the next 4 days, all while feeling extremely tired. But instead of sleeping through the night, I recorded this footage hoping I had enough for the room tour. I even stayed behind with the sleeping bag just to have enough time to finish, all while everyone else was getting adjusted to the new place, only to quickly pack my stuff off camera immediately after I was done filming that section. Over 7 hours of rambling have been cut down into this one video, but I am satisfied with the final result presented here. It doesn't even feel so much time has passed, but I had fun with this chapter of my life, and hopefully the next one is even better, as this probably won't be the last we move. And as bootleg as it was, I'll actually miss that home, but I'm glad that, I was able to at least finish this room tour as a celebration for my YouTube channel's 11-year anniversary, even if it's 1 month late. So thank you for the patience everyone. I hope the streams have at least kept you satisfied until future uploads, which will continue soon. But with all that said, there's one last thing left to do. Remember, take a yonder at the action channel for the action videos, and take a yonder at the gaming channel for the gaming videos. I haven't said that in a long time. Thank you for watching though everyone, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye everybody. Goodbye. CPT playing on the guitar. Play us a beautiful tune. Get it, you. Take it away, Joe. Take it away, it's going on the mountain, we go on it. That was beautiful, beautiful performance by CPT.